understanding how stuff is just made in general through Unity is really important, because you'll like understand like, oh, like polygon count is important, and how like placement and lighting works is important. And I got to learn all that.
Welcome to the Metaverse Degen. I'm Lion, and we're joined here by another little fuzzy guy who hasn't been on in a while.
Where? Did he come in and I missed him? Oh, hi, folks. I'm back. How you doing? I'm Old Man Raptor, and our guest is...
Oh, hello. I'm ChyadoSensei.
Oh, thank you very much for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure
Yes.
to meet you. Oh, indeed, Rooney. So,
Yes, yes, indeed.
what is it you're known for, and how did you even get involved in all of this, into VRChat, and what you're up to?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. I don't know where to start. I guess like I'm just known for like just making goofy content on like different social media platforms like TikTok and YouTube and everything. And then I'm also known for working at the virtual market team for doing like really cool events in VRChat.
Oh, so how did you get into VRChat and making content and working for for Virtual Market?
Oh man, this is okay. So back in the wonderful year of 2020, the Quest 2 was released. Remember that?
Yep.
Remember when the Quest 2 was released?
I remember.
So yeah, I was part of that wave. I was part of the Questy wave, and I was like really wanting to get into VR, because I actually used to work in game development for a while, and I loved working in VR games and everything. And I missed that whole like immersion and everything like that. And at the time, like, you know, headsets were really expensive. Like you couldn't get like into VR without dropping at least like $600 to $800 just to get into like your general VR experience. So yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, Quest 2, it's so cheap. I can finally get back into it. And oh gosh. So there's so many things that build up to what led me to wanting to also get this headset too, because I used to watch a lot of VRChat content as well. More specifically, I used to like to watch Great Moon Aroma. I don't know if you ever heard of
Yep, I've seen his stuff.
him before. It's yeah, he's a South Korean based VTuber. I love his content. I think he's incredibly hilarious. I love his character design as well, which kind of influenced what my character looked like. Um, and I was like, oh man, that'd be so cool if I could do that. You know, like I would love to have like all these social experiences, and I would love to like have just fun moments and have my own VTuber avatar, and just kind of mix it all together into what I'm about, which is like sharing like life in Japan and everything. And yeah, so I got the Quest 2, and it started me into understanding how everything works. And I'll never forget the first time I jumped into VRChat with my headset. It was a terrible experience. I was like, oh, this is gonna be cool. Like, I can't wait. This is gonna be the start.
Question out the door.
No, it was bad. It was terrible, because I was like, I didn't know much about VRChat at the time. Like, I barely knew anything about it. I just knew kind of like what it's about and like sort of things you can do in it. And I remember jumping in, and I was like, oh wow, and I see all these people in front of a mirror, and I was like, oh, like, because I don't understand it, right? Because all the content that I consumed about VRChat was people actually talking to each other and interacting and like playing games. And I was like, oh, well, maybe like they're looking at something, you know, like is there something going on that I don't know? And I remember going up to them. I was like, oh, hey everyone, like, can you hear me? And then like, honest to God, it was like this. I'll give you exact reenactment of how it went.
My fucking God. Oh shit, he's here.
That was exactly what happened.
Oh.
And I was just like, oh, hello? And then like the one's like, bro, these fucking glitches, like they're trying to talk to us. I was like, nah, for real? This is how it's gonna be? I'm just like, well, it had to be just, it's gotta be this group. Like maybe I'm just like, maybe I just, you know, bad luck, right? I'll hop somewhere else. So went to another world, and it was the same deal. Went to another world, and it was the same deal. I was like, man, man, this kind of sucks. Like, what? How? Wait, am I being like, where's the fun at? Like, where's the fun at in this? I don't get it. And mind you, I didn't have this avatar either. I was a butter avatar. My default back in the day was a butter avatar, which I thought was really cute and funny. And it was like that for probably like almost a solid year, where I didn't like know anyone. I didn't have any friends, and all I would do is world hop because I thought world hopping was really cool. And I mean, check out this world, right? You know, it's pretty cool. It's Banjo Kazooie, and I was just like, man, I don't get it. Like, how do people make friends in this? Because I just don't get it. And then thankfully, a world came out in 2021 called No Time to Talk, and that was like the ignition that I needed to finally start like making friends in VRChat. Because that like it separates people from like that whole like mirror concept of like, oh, the only way to really socially interact is by being in a mirror and stuff like that. It rips people out of that comfort zone and puts you in the room with someone else for like, was it like 90 seconds or something like that?
Mhm.
Love that world. Also, shout out to Fax Machine for making that world. Dude's a genius for coming up with that. If it wasn't for that world, I probably wouldn't be where I am now, because it led to a lot of opportunities with both content creators, my own content, and just making friends in general and staying on VRChat. That world alone just unlocked everything for me.
I have a question for
But
you
yeah,
in regards
sorry,
to that
I'm
as
rambling.
well.
I'm
Just-
yapping like crazy.
No, it's okay. If you want to go on tangents, go right for it. I won't stop you. Fair warning about that. But what kept you coming back if you spent a year without like making any friends yet? Like, what kept you returning, may I ask?
So, by the time like, so I got this avatar in early 2021 because I still was on my goal of like, okay, even regardless of these turd people being in VRChat that I'm coming across in public worlds, I still want to like go down this route of making my own VTuber avatar, making fun content, you know, like doing like all those like fun TikToks and stuff like that. I want to get full body someday because I do like dancing, but I'm just not a dancer in public. I do like the idea of being in my own room where people can't judge me and let me just have fun, you know?
Yep.
So that was there. So having that buildup of like still having a determination of making content in VRChat was there, which kept me coming back. And also the world hopping, even to this day, I still love doing. Like there's times where like I'll even take lunch breaks and I'll just world hop because that's how much I enjoy it. There's so many worlds in VRChat. And sometimes you find like an absolute banger that like you'll just come back to like multiple times.
I very much agree. And isn't there like hundreds of worlds posted in this game a day as well? Like it's insane how much is created here.
Yeah, and it keeps growing too. I mean, the growth of VRChat is crazy. I mean, the concurrent game rate of players is somewhere between like what 50 to 70,000 hourly. So that's huge. That's MMO numbers, and that's not including the numbers that they don't reveal with like players on Meta and everything, right? That's just like Steam VR alone. So the amount of desktop PC VR users is already like huge.
Indeed. So from No Time to Talk, what led you to making content and working with the market team?
I have to jump a few chapters with this one. So basically, I was really into. I was just starting to make content. You know, I got my VTuber avatar, and then No Time to Talk came out, and I was meeting people, and I was starting to learn more and more about the culture of VRChat and like the people that use it. I was like, oh, okay, this is how it is. I'm like, oh, that's why people go in front of mirrors. It's because like it's kind of like a social gathering point to like interact with everyone. Okay, I get it now. Like it's making sense to me. And then I started meeting other content creators in VRChat through going to No Time to Talk. And I ended up running into, I think, one of the most popular VRChat Twitch streamers because of that as well. I ended up being part of the community, and I learned about so much. It was like I got skyrocketed in experience by joining that community and understanding like what people do with the platform in different ways. Like it's insane how deep VRChat is. Like you cannot even scratch the surface because of how much stuff there is. Like there's so many communities and creators and events, which is just mind-boggling. And through time of me just constantly hitting up VRChat, I then experienced my first ever virtual market, which was in 2022. And just a side note to all this, one of the co-founders of Virtual Market is actually an old friend of mine who I used to work with back when I was at Twitch Japan. And so it was kind of neat to be like, I was like, oh, this is what she does. Oh, that's really cool. Like, I didn't know it was like directly related to VRChat. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. But yeah, with all the history that kept building up, it led to the point where I was like, it'd be really cool to like, wow, it'd be really cool to not only just make fun content in VRChat, but what if I worked in VRChat? That'd be wild. And then I ended up hitting up my friend. I was like, hey, like, do you need anyone that like does anything at your place? Because like, you know, I'm open to accepting some job offers if you have any. And she was like, oh my gosh, you're perfect. We need someone who speaks English and Japanese, and we need someone to like do stuff in VRChat and blah blah blah. I was like, cool. And then like literally like the next week, I'm like in a meeting with like the board members and the CEO, and they're like, all right, you're perfect. Well, let's get you in. And like less than a month after that, I was part of the team.
Oh wow. So may I ask,
Yeah.
what is it like going from where you were into now working in VRChat with Virtual Market? Did you kind of expect yourself to be here, or was it just like a wild ride that you kind of hopped in on?
No, like man, it definitely opened my eyes on sort of like the large, vast amount of opportunities that are available in VRChat outside of just like making content and meeting friends and world creation and avatar creation. It's wild how many companies are actually invested into putting stuff into VRChat as well. Like they got Sony, you've got like like even like the main headsets like Vive, Meta, all these companies that put so much investment into making sure that the technology is compatible with like VRChat. And then like you got these companies that are like advertising companies or bleeding edge technology companies who are investing into VRChat by putting in events like Virtual Market. It's crazy because I didn't know such big AAA Titan companies are investing and sponsoring events to be shown on the platform. So I had no idea. I didn't know it was that big. I thought it was like, oh, okay, it's big, but not that big. I was like, wow, these are big players. And yeah, I was it opened my eyes on just the amount of investors that are in VRChat is crazy.
Wow. May I ask, what has been some of those eye-opening things you've seen while working with Virtual Market, may I ask, or people you've met through VRChat?
Ooh. Man. I think one of the things, like I mentioned, it was these big companies. So seeing people like Japan Rail, like literally the entire rail system of Japan sponsors Virtual Market, and it's crazy to see them. They know there's a market here, and they know like there's people who will be willing to kind of want to know about what's going on in Japan. So it's like, oh, let's literally advertise the rail system in virtual reality. It's wild to see that. It's wild to see Sony, like, what was it, 2020? I think it was 2023. Sony released the Mokopi, the full body virtual like set that they had, right? The trackers and everything. Like it's crazy to see how Sony's like, oh, okay, there's a market for this. Like we want to invest into like B-tubing, and we want to invest into like VR and XR technology more than we already are now. And they made that. They're a competitor now for like Vives, like 3.0 trackers and stuff like that, right? And you got like Tundra investing, and like you got all these like new technologies coming out, and it's so wild to see how these big companies are like, oh, okay, there's definitely a huge market here. We should totally invest. We should totally like focus fire on making that kind of stuff. And then, I mean, like, I don't know about you, but now, like back then, right, 2-3 years ago, full body tracking was like whoa, like oh my gosh, look at them. You can see how they're standing, you can see how they're moving. That adds so much detail, and like like it's so eye appealing to see that sort of stuff. But now the new whoa is facial tracking, right?
Mm-hmm.
people want facial tracking now. That is like the new must-have, the new bleeding edge technology to really be like, oh yeah, now I'm really in like VRChat. You know, like people are trying to get like the pro just for the eye tracking alone. So seeing that like being used and built for VRChat now is just, it's crazy. And I feel like that's going to be like the new standard now, is any headset coming out from now on, the general baseline for headsets is going to be eye tracking and or facial tracking, and possibly wireless as well. I mean, wireless is still kind of like difficult, I'm sure, for some to have, considering battery life and stuff like that. But I do feel like the general line will be facial tracking and eye tracking.
I very much agree with you there. I think facial tracking is the next big thing. I also see some other, like through like news and seeing what other things tech companies are working on, I notice is isn't like there's a Disney tile walking system they have coming out similar to the slide mills and other omnidirectional treadmills, but it's tiles you put on your floor that'll function and stuff like that. I've noticed is coming out.
Yeah.
He's currently anyway.
That'd be really cool to have. Oh, see, I met the what's the name of that one company that made the one? Is it Omni? Oh gosh, I'm forgetting the company's name. It's the one where like they have like the you like strap it on your waist.
Yeah.
It's like that giant thing that I forget that company. I feel bad too because I hung out with the CEO and the marketing guy last year for Tokyo Game Show. But they were in Japan for Tokyo Game Show, and they came to Kyoto, and I was touring them around the city. We're hanging out with a couple other devs, and you know, like it was really cool because like, have you ever seen Ready Player One?
Yes.
Okay,
I watched it 6 times this week.
Oh, this week, nice, back to back, or like did you actually every other day or something?
I've been watching every other day. I've been watching it, trying to get the idea of the treadmill system and how they were hanging and stuff like this. I like to create and stuff like this, so I was seeing how they were doing it and all that kind of crap. Still puzzled, but you know, it's just one of those things.
Yeah. No, it's cool, but to relate to meeting these guys who made that machine, I don't know if you call it machine, like that whole like walking system that they built. They're the ones who gave that prototype to the film team for Ready Player One. So they had a prototype ready for them, and they were telling me like how like was it Steven Spielberg who directed that whole entire thing? Like I guess like he contacted them, and they went down to Texas to pick up like the prototype, and they had to like spray paint the prototype like green so that it would like, so they could just make it look a little bit more different in the movie and stuff like that. But like they still have the original prototype that they used in Ready Player One at like their office out in Texas. It was like a really cool story they told me.
You know, now that you mentioned that, I think I know exactly what it is. It's not the Omni that uses it. It's an I know it's an omnidirectional, but it's not the Omni. I think the Omni is a slide mill. What's it classified as? You put in funny shoes.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's like those like slippers, so like your feet are slippery, so like you don't like. Yeah.
I don't remember what the other one's called either. I haven't looked at it in a minute. I can help you. I wish I could. So with that said, what was your starting in terms of making content? What made you want to make content in VR and acclimate to the culture, mask or VR culture?
So, oh gosh, so 2021, you know, I get my avatar done. I'm like, okay, here we go. I'm gonna start making content now, right? And I was first aiming towards like, oh, should I like okay, I'm trying so hard not to smash. Some people are like, okay, like don't get me wrong, there's great content creators on TikTok, but like for me, I have my pet peeve is being how do you explain? It's not like mansplaining. Okay, in Japan, there's this word called gaijin-splaining, and so what gaijin-splaining is when so a gaijin in Japanese means foreigner, right? And basically, like you'll have a person come to Japan and who has like less than like a month or even like less than a year of experience living in the country, right? But they're explaining to you what life is like here, right? And
Uh-huh.
they're like, oh my gosh, like Japan's like this, and I've only been here for like 7 hours, and I already know everything. You know what I mean? So like, I was like going to aim towards like just shitting on these people because I've been in this country for a very long time, very long, and I was like, oh, I kind of want to shit on these people because like I'm tired of like all this like lame false information being like spread around and stuff like that. You know, I mean, like I'm fighting the good fight, but then I was like, that's gonna be a forever fight, and that's just stressful. I don't want to. And then, like eventually, people who do make that content do get called out for being false anyway, just naturally. So that's just not good for my mental health or anything. So I'm just like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna stick with like funny stuff and just like being goofy and exploring like technologies and stuff like that with VR chat. So with that being said, I liked making just goofy content and just sort of like having fun by showing like social experiences I have in VR chat. Because I felt like, okay, no one does this where they're like just showing like a regular day in VR chat, right? They're not showing like the social stuff. Like they have people who are like trolls or like memers and stuff like that. They'll go in and like interact with people, yeah, but like they're there to be funny and there to directly use people as their content, right? But I didn't want to do that. I was like, that feels weird. I want to like show people like, oh, look at these cool games you can play, and the people you'll see when you play them, like Prison Escape or Murder 4, like, and then see what kind of social things happen in the midst of just being like a regular player. That's the stuff that I've never seen. So I was doing stuff like that, and I would stream that, and I would cut funny moments that happened within those like streams and stuff like that. And I would make that like an actual like, less than a minute clip. And then I would like in between those, I would make like actual, like TikTok funny videos using like the sounds and like reenacting scenes and stuff like that. And I also tried doing like world exploration videos. And because of that, that helped like make a, was it a word I'm trying to think of? Repertoire? How do you say it in English? Repertoire, right?
Yeah, repertoire.
Yeah, repertoire. I was making a repertoire of like a background of like all this like stuff, and it helped kind of like I don't know, like make a name for myself. And then when I got introduced and involved with this big streaming community, that also kind of like just plunged me into just the overall like I think like the deepest crevices of history of VR chat. It was like okay, now I'm like in like OG territory now at this point where I'm interacting with people who've been playing VR chat since like 2017, and I'm meeting people who've been making worlds in this game since like 2016, and I'm like learning about all this stuff. So yeah, that's kind of like how it all just kind of like skyrocketed into what I am now.
Oh, so what have been some of your more memorable experiences you've had making content and doing streams like that of the normal games, talking with people? What have been some things that stuck with you over the years?
Ooh, man, I think I think I want to use something recent because I feel like everything up until the beginning of 2023 was all like it was all character development, right? I was in my character development phase, right? And all the lore was being created for myself, and I was really putting my footprint down at that time. But then when I joined Virtual Market, I then was like exposed to like the creme de la creme of everything that VRChat is known for. And like for instance, New Eden, right? And like the Eden team just like showing me like these incredible dancers and avatars they create and these events that they do. And Virtual Market with these yearly things that they have, like with summer and winter. And it's so crazy to see this like top quality stuff, and it's really memorable too because it's like wow, like these are people who are like actually investing money into the whole spiel, right? These aren't people who are like just like the baseline content creator trying to like make a stream or a video. These are people who are like have investors and like people who like have sponsors and like are sincere with their content. So I think doing stuff with these people is the most memorable because it's like this is like literally history in the making, right? It's literally just like being involved with like people who are pushing for a future of like making more interesting things for like all the general like users and fans.
Ooh, okay. So those kinds of experiences are the ones you look forward to most?
Yeah, no, like it's crazy. Last year was our first time ever doing virtual market real, so it's called vket real. And in the history of ever, I believe, uh, we had virtual market in Tokyo. So we had like a real event. We locked down Akihabara. There's this place called Akiba Square, and we had that locked in for 2 days at the end of virtual market, which I think it was like early August or something like that. But we locked that down, and at this event, you could like do all this like really cool VR stuff, right? You could like try out new headsets. You could see all these investors who are putting stuff into VR, XR technology. Um, and that was a full weekend on Saturday and Sunday, and we had over like 40,000 attendees in just 2 days. Yeah, it's intense, and a lot of these people who are coming are VRChat fans, right? These are VRChat fans in Japan who are like, oh my gosh, like VRChat physical, that's crazy, like that's never happened ever. There's like never been something like that before, especially in Japan. So it went really well, and we ended up doing the same thing again in winter, but it was way bigger. We ended up doing it in Shibuya, and we did one in it was in Harajuku. So it was 2 places in Tokyo at that time, and that also did really well. We had like over, I think, like a soft number of 50,000 people attend.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's crazy, and to just be there, and there's like press there, there's like stream like cameras and producers, and there's like all these big people, like we're in the news. We have like posters like all over the city. Even like, you ever like see those trucks in Tokyo where like they have like big images and they're playing music really loud and they're going through the city? You ever see those before? The like
In a
advertising
video
trucks?
or two, but I'm not familiar with them personally.
Yeah, so Japan has like this big thing industry where like they'll like, you literally like pay a truck to put a poster on like this truck, and it'll blast music and just go around the city to advertise like an event or like a band or whatever it is, right? Whatever you're advertising. And we did that with virtual market. So like it plays a song and it goes around Tokyo, all around the city, and just blasts music to show the event. And the cool thing too is that like all these posters, they have your OC, like you can apply and get your avatar on the poster.
Oh,
So like people can see their like character being shown around Tokyo with like music blasting and everything. It's so cool. It's a really big deal, and people love it. I literally screamed like a schoolgirl when I saw the truck and I saw my character on it.
I can only imagine. I do have a question, and it's for those who may not know what VRChat or VKet is. What is VKet, and how different is VKet VR and VRChat versus VKet Real?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. So little history. So VKet started back in 2018 with our main man Theo, who was like, "Oh man, it sucks like having to like go outside." Like I feel that sometimes, honestly, where I'm just like, I just don't want to go out. I just want to stay inside and just not be involved with like the general public. But Theo made it so that like, hey, like, wouldn't it be cool if like there was like an event where you could like show off like worlds or avatars or assets or whatever, prefabs, you name it, for like an event. And it got to the point where it went from like an idea to an actual thing, and then it went from just one time to twice a year, and then went from twice a year to multiple times a year, and it just got more and more involved. And I think I want to say 2019 or 2018. No, it was 2018 or 2020. I think, well, I'll have to fact check me later. One of those years wasn't like the first time they actually got sponsors for the event, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger to the point where it is now, where it's like this massive event that happens in VRChat, where like we literally take over like the world selection. Like we have all these huge sponsors that talk about it, and it's an event where people can come together, they can show off their avatars, they can show off their assets, and icing on the cake is that big companies get involved, and we have these worlds that are limited time called parareal worlds, and these are worlds that we put a lot of love, a lot of like passion into, and these worlds have like the sponsors there that will like show their support, help put bread on the table, keep the lights on for this event. So it's awesome. And the next part of your question was the difference between the one in VRChat and the one in real life. So VKet Real does have a lot of those sponsors bleed into the real event, and that is for both communities. Again, we actually have an area dedicated to like the communities that use VRChat. So like there's like a whole section. Like last year, we had like a whole different building dedicated to the communities that would like rent like even bars. They would like rent like a bar for like a day, or they'll rent like a whole area and they'll have like a booth there that you can physically go to and be like, oh hey, like I'm so and so from VRChat, and it's cool because then people can meet each other. It's really cool. And then of course the sponsors are there showing off their new technology, like new headsets, even like there's people who are showing off like new drinks. Like we had Santori with like their non-alcoholic beer. They're advertising like non-alcoholic beers and stuff like that at the event. I know some of you probably are like, what, beer without alcohol? What's the point then, right? But you know, that's the cool thing. Like you can just do that, and there's just so much that you can check out. Like it's the sky's the limit on what's being shown there, but it is centralized around like new technologies and just finding ways to like get involved with like the VR world and everything. It's funny. The virtual event now just became a real event, and the real event is advertising the virtual event. You know what I mean? It's this weird like mirror thing happening.
How did you feel seeing the real event after being in VRChat, experiencing vket here? What was it like for you?
It was pretty cool. Like I didn't know what to expect because last year was the first time they ever done it. They've never done the real one before until last year. So when I joined the team, they're like, oh, we're going to do a real event. Like, we don't know how it's going to go. We don't know if it's going to be a success or if it's just going to be like meh. And the interesting thing too about my company is that nobody in my company, including myself, uses our real name. We all go by our usernames, and no one knows what each other looks like either. There's I don't know if I can say the exact number, but there's more than 100 people that work at my company. And we've all never physically seen each other because whenever we're in meetings, we use our avatars.
Okay.
And we don't physically go anywhere because we all work from home because, we've learned that you don't need to be in an office to get your job done, obviously. Which is great. I just want to say, just a clap for my company, is realizing that you don't need to be in an office to get your job done, and also being forward thinking, because Japan is very hard headed on new ideas when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I just want a little pat on the back for being like that for my company. But yeah, it's crazy to sort of be in this atmosphere. It's like, oh wow, we don't even really know each other looks like. So finally having the real event and then going there, and it's like, oh, that's what you look like? You know what I mean? It was really cool. And the success of it obviously resonated within the company. It's like, oh, this went really well. We can do it again. And now it's it seems like this is going to be a yearly thing because of how well it's doing.
Okay. You said something that kind of interested me, and I'm just curious because I don't know myself. You said Japan's work, it really isn't forward thinking, so you pat your company back for doing the officeless work. What is Japan work culture like, and what was it like for you going into that different style of zero office kind of atmosphere?
So, man, because I used to work at a pretty, I'll put it on blast, honestly. I'm not going to say the name of the company, but I did work at in Japanese, it's called Buraku Kigyo, which means black company, or Buraku Gaisha. And a black company in Japan is, what the title means is that you're at a company where they'll do multiple things, where it's there's a lot of gaslighting. They will verbally harass you. They'll give you an insane amount of work. They'll demand insane hours. You come in at 7 and you don't leave until 11. Even to the point where you miss your train and you're either A, better off just sleeping at the office, or B, you have to get home extremely late and then wake up 5 hours later just to go back and do it all over again, right?
Yeah.
All these things I could just go on with the list, but that's sadly, I wouldn't say it's common, but there is a prevalent amount of black companies in Japan. So I've worked at one and it was pretty rough. And going from that style of work, even just a general job where it's I had to wake up at 6 and get to office by 7 or 8, and then doing your hours and then getting back on a packed train with people and being exhausted. like it's taxing, right? It's just mentally taxing. Like even now to this day, I'm just like, how did I even do that? I can't ever imagine myself ever doing a job like that ever again, unless it paid like 6 digits a year. You know what I mean? Like there's no way you can convince me to do it again. And then going in from that to a company that's like, oh, like what's the point of coming to the office when you literally have the equipment at home and you feel comfortable at home and you can just do the hours at home and like, you know, like you just get stuff done there. Like it's just wonderful. So it really is a breath of fresh air, and it feels like, oh wow, this company actually trusts me, because that's how it should be. Like if you're hiring someone, that means you trust them, right? Like you shouldn't have to micromanage someone.
Okay. So does it seem like with the black companies, as you mentioned, does it feel like you as a worker don't feel trusted versus where you work now?
It's like, I think it's a mixture of just like bad company like culture, and just overall like this old like mindset of like, oh well, I went through that, so you have to, you know what I mean? And we're not going to be successful unless you go through the same stuff that we do, kind of thing. And there is a lot, like there's straight up like, not to go into like another side story, but there is a point where I was at my previous company, or like not the previous one. The previous one actually was my own company that I worked at, which is fine. But before that was the rough one. And that company, I actually had to go through the Ministry of Labor. Long story short, it got so bad, I reported it all to the Ministry of Labor, and like we got like all this like stuff happened. And yeah, because like it's against the law. What they do is against the law, period, right? And you can get into an insane amount of trouble by the government if someone comes up to them and goes, "Hey, this is happening to me. Here's all the information." Like, you know what I mean? Here's like, you know, like, because you know you have to like write down what happened. And like you can't just say it's happening, right? You have to have like actual proof that in some way, shape, or form that's happening to you, right? And then like companies will get like ticks and stuff like that, and then eventually like they'll get like sued by the government. That's including like over hours. That's including just work ethic. You know, like all these like things that like will align with like what a black company could be or be doing. And eventually like they'll even like to the point where they'll even shut down a company if it gets that bad, if there's no like improvements and stuff like that. So yeah, anyway, all the experience in history and having that, and then going to a company that doesn't need to micromanage and just understands like, we don't need to do that. We don't need to be that old thinking way. You know what I mean? Like we're a new company. We're all like at a young age where it's like, we obviously don't want to like, why would we want to make a work environment like the ones that we tried to avoid, right? So they kept that mindset and they kept that image, and yeah, no, it obviously works really well because we're doing great.
Since you are now working in a company where you can be in your VR headset to work, do you see VRChat any differently than you did when you first entered?
You know, I kind of do. I don't want to say it took away like the sparkles and shine of what VRChat is, but I guess like that kind of goes with anything, right? Like if you I don't know if you heard that thing where it's like, oh, if you work really hard and you get the job that you love, then you'll love what you do every day. You know what I mean? Like that's not true. Like I love VRChat, and I mean I love video games. I used to work in video games, but it made what I love not a chore, but just like it's like, oh, okay, like I got to do this, you know, or else I don't get food, and I can't pay rent, or you know, whatever. It it definitely made me realize that there's a lot of pressure on executing like special things. So it took like, because like when you go to an event or whatever, a party, you're just there to have a good time. You're like, oh, this is awesome, yeah, way. But when you're the one making the party or the get together, then you realize the stress that goes behind, right? Like setting it up, like making sure people come on time, and you know, scheduling things and inviting people. Like a party is fun when you're there to party. The party's not fun when you're there making the party, right?
Okay.
So it's like that.
It makes a whole lot of sense. And what made you want to work in video games in the beginning? What led you to that path, and what was it like working in that industry in Japan?
It's because I'm a fucking nerd.
Fucking nerd.
No, I mean I am, but like I mean, gosh, I've been playing games since like forever. I keep my age hidden, but I've been playing video games for a very long time, and I've always dreamed of like, oh, it's so cool to like work at a game company, you know, and like the dream is like to work at a really cool game company. Have you ever seen that commercial? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna show my age with this. There was a commercial where it was like advertising being a QA tester for a game company, or like I think just for any game company. It was like a QA testing position, and the commercial was like these kids on the couch and they're like playing video games, and like the mom comes in, or like I think it's like a roommate or like a mom or something. She comes in, she's like, "Don't you have to go to work?" And they're like, "Oh, I am working." And like the friend's like, "Dude, can you believe that we play video games for a living?" He's like, "Yeah," and they high five, and they're playing the video games or whatever. I'm like, it is not like that. It is not that fun. QA is a grueling, slow, and boring thing. Like, there's times where I even fell asleep doing QA back in the day. Like, that is a lie. But it is cool. Working in the game industry is really cool. You'll meet amazing people. I've met many legends in the industry. Like, I've met Hideo Kojima. I've met Aonuma. I've met what's his name? I met Machida from Penny Blood. I've met oh gosh, like there's too many lists. Like another one, what's his name? Oh my gosh, this name's just coming out of my ears. Like I can't grab him. Oh my gosh, the guy who made Castlevania. Oh my gosh, this is embarrassing because like I used to work with him too. Anyway, you work with all these legends, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, these people literally made my childhood. You know what I mean? Like these people are responsible for like all these countless hours of enjoyment I've had growing up. And it's so cool to be in that atmosphere and to like literally talk and interact with them and like I guess in a small sense, like sort of like make history and like helping make these games possible. And I don't know, it's just really fun. It's really cool. Even like when the grueling times are there, in the end, when the game's like finally released and out there in the public and people are playing it and you're seeing like the positive response from the fans, it's like it's such a rewarding feeling. And then at the end of the game, seeing your name in the credits to be there forever in history is such a cool feeling too.
I can only imagine. Did you enjoy meeting those people that made your childhood? Were they what you expected them to be initially? Hello, just real quick, I'll only take a few seconds of your time. In the description that way you have a card, metaversedegen.card.co. We have many links down there for you to come check out. We have an X link, which is with me. We have a Discord where we hang out and do stuff all the time, as well as a Patreon link, where if you wish to support us, you can. Where there's also a show and another podcast separate from Metaverse Degen, which we have available to our wonderful members who signed up, such as Niche, Training Fangs, Aliquum, and Forbidden Zero. Thank you all. You're all amazing. Enjoy the rest of your video. I won't take up any of your time.
There is one bad experience I've had with like, you ever get that thing? It was like, don't meet your heroes kind of thing.
Yep. I've heard that one.
That's been true once for me. But for everyone else has been pretty good. But there has been one experience where I met a certain, I'm not going to name them, so I don't want to I don't want to get my Twitter attacked. But there was one person I did meet who was like one of the worst human beings on the planet. And I was like, oh my gosh, how did no one, you know what I mean? Like, how does someone be so terrible and not be exposed for this already? You know what I mean? So that happened once, but for everyone else, like meeting all these like mega stars of my childhood was as I expected. They're as nerdy as I am. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh okay. They're socially awkward. They don't know what to talk about. They don't know how to continue a conversation, or like, you know, they're so old they forgot what to talk about. You know what I mean? Like they're cool. They're on the same page. They're, you know, they're regular people just like us. So it's really cool.
Okay. What did you imagine working in the game industry was like initially? Like when you're first like, I want to do that, and then you actually started doing it. What were you envisioning it to seem like, may I ask?
I think I envisioned more like in on hands involvement on like how the game is being shaped, and like, you know, doing like body acting, like putting on a suit and like doing all that kind of stuff, like having that opportunity, or voice acting. I did get to do a couple voice acting roles in a couple of games, but a lot of it is just prep. It's so much prep and it's boring. Like making like press releases or writing emails or responding to emails, helping community with like tech issues and stuff like that. That I would say that, and events, and going to events and like displaying like the new title and everything, that's like probably 70% of the job.
Hmm.
And then the other 30 is like actually getting to like touch the game and play it and like maybe get a little involved with it. So it's and also there's like a lot of like QA, right? Like making sure the game runs smoothly, making sure everything like looks good, reporting it to the other dev teams and stuff like that, making sure that they're aware of like issues, stuff like that. It's definitely on the outside. It's like, oh wow, it's so cool because look at these games. But then when you get inside, it's like, oh, there's a lot of build up before the fun happens, right?
Yeah. So may I ask, what is QA testing? At least I don't know what that is.
Oh, okay, yeah. QA is quality assurance. So whenever you play a game and let's say you're walking and all of a sudden you fall through the floor, that is QA's fault because they should have been able to spot that, obviously. And so QA ensures that your experience through a game from start to finish is as the producer envisioned it, right? So that's their job, is to make sure that the game runs smoothly, there's no bugs, and that everything works fine, and your machine, whatever you're using on, runs it smoothly.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that. So is it be like if you're testing to make sure all the colliders are working, you kind of walk in a pattern-esque thing up and down the map to make sure everything is there, that kind of thing?
It's literally, yeah, it's literally just like play the game, and also play the game how they wouldn't expect it. Like for me, when I'm playing a game, I'll like do stupid stuff. Like I'll try to like jump on a wall, see if I can like, cheat the system and like get somewhere where I'm not supposed to, or stuff like that. And QA is to ensure that can't happen, right?
Yep.
To make sure that the player stays on what the game was intended for you to do and play as, right? So there's times where like you'll be goofing around playing it and like, oh, I wonder if I can go down the slide and throw a bomb and make myself fly off and like, towards the end of the level. I wonder if I can do that. It's stuff like that. You try to do things that the devs don't expect to happen as well, other than just play the game to see if there's any bugs. And there's so many times you will find a bug doing something stupid like that, where it's like, oh, it turns out if you talk to this person while eating a sandwich, you'll like get teleported to like the final boss or something like that stupid. And of course, the devs are like, how did you find that? That's so random. And it's like, well, it's there, so fix it,
Were there any times you left any of those bugs in on purpose just so for the people who are playing it, or it was almost like kind of you have to leave, mention that bug or thing is there?
Oh, actually, I don't know if I should admit to this. There are bugs that might be in games that make what I would consider the experience better or more manageable than what was intended. I will not confirm nor deny that there might be a bug in a certain game that does exist that does make the game a little bit easier than it should be, and I'll leave it at that.
I don't want to get you in trouble based on a funny question I had to ask you. Were there any times that the developer you were working for left something in like that on purpose, like your bosses?
Ooh, I want to say yes, and it actually led to an update. So there was one game I worked on where the player would go from point A to point B just walking around, and it turned out that some people felt that the character movement was kind of slow. They're like, okay, it's like it takes a while to get from this side of the screen to this side of the screen, and it'd be nice if like the whole exploring part of the game was a little bit faster because it feels kind of slow. And there was a way where you would like, I think like press a certain button where it would make your character spin, and that increase your speed by like just a little bit. And so the dev was like, we should add a dash system to the game. And then they did. They actually ended up adding a dash system because of everyone just like spamming the A button to make their character spin around just to go a little bit faster from point A to point B, because it was an RPG. So it didn't matter how fast you went from the locations. It didn't break the game in any way. Just made it easier to, hurry up and get to the next part of the game. So the dev was like, okay, next update, we're adding a dash system, and they did, and everyone loved it.
That's good to know. So after all this experience in the game industry, do you see or play video games differently than you would in your past?
I think because of my experience now, I am more lenient towards playing indie games more than I am AAA games, and I understand the struggles of like the small man, right? The person who is starting out wanting to get their stuff shown and the struggle that is there to get seen, right? I have a huge heart for indie made content. I always go to indie game conventions. I always go to indie game get-togethers that happen here in Japan. I think it definitely. I guess I don't want to say like I'm against AAA titles and stuff like that, but it has solidified the fact that like if I had a choice between a AAA game or an indie game, I would probably go for the indie game because I feel like that's got more. I don't want to say more quality because like I'm not saying AAA games don't have great quality. AAA games have amazing quality. It's literally Hollywood quality games, right? AAA. But I feel like indie games have like so much heart in it because this is like a passion project by like 1 to 10 people, right? Usually it's like 1 or 3 people, even less, and it feels so connected to see what this person's vision was, and it kind of like makes me want to support that person more than it makes me want to put money into like a multi-million, almost billion-dollar company that like just prints money all the time.
I can understand that very much. What were some of the indie titles that you enjoy, that you found you wanted to support?
I mean, I could shout out some games I worked on and help publish. Okay, actually, I'll shout out a couple of really good indie games that aren't mine.
Feel
I
free to shout out
think
yours too, man.
a really good one. Oh, okay. Well, if that's the case, I mean, like, shout out to Palworld, by the way, for making an amazing game. And then, like, I don't know, some rip-off company called, like, Game Freak, some make Pokemon, some kind of rip-off game. I don't know. That's kind of messed up. They had, they copied Palworld. But, we'll see what happens after, the suing happens. Anyway. No, but Palworld, I got to give a prop to Palworld for making a great game. And technically, that's an indie title, right? That's an indie title. I mean, Deltarune and that whole thing, like the creator of Deltarune and oh my gosh, am I forgetting his first game? Hello? Oh my gosh, Toby, what's your first game? I can't remember his name. The name of the first game he made. Anyway, Undertale. That's it. Okay, oh, that was bad. I actually got to meet Toby a couple years ago at one of the events that happened here in Japan, and I mean, gosh, he made that game with like, was it like $40,000 through a Kickstarter campaign or something like that?
Oh wow!
And now he's like, oh yeah, now he's like a millionaire because of how well that game did. But I actually have, you can't see it, but over here on my shelf, I have a signed copy of the original soundtrack by him, like himself. That's a little treasure of mine. I like to show off sometimes. I'm like, yeah, look, he's real, There's that. Man, there's so many good indie games. Shout out to something I worked on, Bug Fables. If you ever played Bug Fables, that was by yours truly. I didn't make the game. I helped publish it. And yeah, if you go through the credits, you'll see my name. Another good one would be, what is it called? Astalon Tears of the Earth, Episode 2. I worked on that one. Made by Matt Cap, who is the artist for The Binding of Isaac. If you ever played Binding of Isaac, which is also an indie game, very successful. He's the one who made Astalon. Like, he made the music, the art. Like, dude's insanely talented. Great game. Go get it if you're looking for a good indie game.
Oh,
I could go on. Literally, I could go on for the next 7 hours talking about indie games. So get me out of here before I capture you.
okay. Fair. All right, I'll ask this question. After your experience in the game industry, how much of that aided you in what you do here in VRChat, may I ask?
Ooh, that's a good question, because a lot of stuff that is made into VRChat goes through Unity, right? With the Udon system. So understanding how stuff is just made in general through Unity is really important because you'll like understand like, oh, like polygon count is important and how like placement and lighting works is important. And I got to learn all that by being in the game industry. And of course, my previous experiences led up to the point where it's like, okay, when we make worlds in VRChat for our events, like for Virtual Market, I understand like, okay, like this world is lagging me because of XYZ. Like, oh, there's too many polygons here, or like they didn't do a job cleaning up this part here. Maybe like the lighting's weird because they didn't implement this here. Audio's weird because of this, that. And it helps me with my job because I'm like, okay, I have this experience. I know what to say now to the dev team that works in the worlds with my current job. I'm like, hey, I was checking out the world to, maybe I'm working on like a social media post, or like I'm working on a video or a press release or whatever, and I am using the worlds that we're working on as a way to sort of like maybe show off or hype up, people for the event. And I'll go and I'll be like, oh, hey, I just saw this and I'm lagging when I go here, so it's probably this. And I went here and the lighting was weird because I think you put this thing here weird, and stuff like that. So it big time helped me with what I'm doing now.
Okay. Did you expect to delve into that experience when you were going through VRChat or working for a virtual market?
No, absolutely not. But I guess like the hint that it was going to happen like that was when I was making my avatar and getting it done, and I was like, oh, I have to use Unity to like actually like you got to use multiple software to create an avatar or world, right? And I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm back in game dev by doing this. And I was getting this avatar ready and uploaded into VRChat. I'm like, man, this is just like game dev. And it was giving me hints of what the future was going to be that I didn't know was going to happen, right? So I think VRChat in some way, like doing stuff in VRChat, like making characters like avatars or like worlds or assets is a great introduction to what it's like to work in game dev biz.
So I have another weird, funny question, kind of on those lines a little bit. Is what you do in VRChat closer to what younger you imagined working in game dev is, or was game dev exactly what you imagined it to be?
No, it's exactly what I imagined it to be, honestly. Like, I remember being a kid and wanting to go to a school to learn game dev. I think it was like in Seattle called like DigiPen or something like that. And I remember in the commercials, them showing like make your own game, like this is the world, and then like they showed like these nerds on the computers and they're like drawing stuff on like I don't know what it was at the time they were using, but they were using some kind of like engine, and they were showing like a 3D model, and the model's like this, and it's being like spun around and turned and stuff like that. And it's like I was like, okay, like that makes sense, because I guess that's how it works. And then going into VRChat, I'm like, oh, there it is. It's exactly that,
Oh, so now to delve into virtual market a little bit, what have been some of your more favorite or memorable experiences while working for a virtual market?
Ooh. Man, man, I'm gonna have to cherry pick here. So I think one would be like the amount of people that you're just like thrown at that are like already established. Like there's people I used to watch on YouTube, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool. Look, all these like VTubers and stuff that I get to watch and like see on VRChat. And then it's like I join vket, and it's like, oh, it turns out they're like a direct partner with Virtual Market, where they'll do a stream or a video with us, and now it's my responsibility to work directly with them. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh my gosh. And then like I'm geeking out because I get to meet them one on one. They're like, hey, like let's meet up and we can talk about stuff that we can do. I'm like, okay. And then I meet them. I'm like, okay, I'm trying not to freak out. I'm trying not to like fanboy over you right now, but like, oh my gosh, it's you. You know what I mean? So it's stuff like that. Or like even people who like work at like different companies. Like I get to meet like staff from like Vive, the Vive company, or I get to meet staff from like Meta and stuff like that in VRChat. And it's like, oh my gosh, you worked on, like you worked on facial tracking, you worked on like this feature and stuff like that. I'm like meeting legends that like the unsung heroes of VR, I'm meeting them, and it's just so cool to meet them. Like they deserve way more praise that they're obviously not getting, but it's really cool to meet like these people who are making what we enjoy now to this day, you know?
So I'm also going to ask another question based on my own not knowing, but how much interest from more of the corporate worlds, like the tech companies that you mentioned, is there in the VR social platform scene?
Massive. It's insane. They know exactly, they know their market. They know where they are. And to be straightforward, virtual market has like a death grip on where that all is, right? Because we know it's a huge young audience in VRChat. There's people out there who want to get involved with like the new technology that's coming out, and the companies like like Meta or Vive or Valve, even Pico, right? They'll see what's going. Even Samsung. Samsung's got their new headset coming out. Panasonic's got a headset coming out soon too. I think Google is making one as well. Apple, like they know stuff like this exists. They know it's here, and they know it's critical to use and to like, for lack of better words, exploit, right?
Yeah.
And they're going gun ho with it. And they know it's there, and I mean, like it's crazy. Like if you go to previous virtual markets, you'll see like literally huge advertisements at the parallel worlds that we have of like these companies that are trying to show off like there's new tech that's coming soon, you know?
So how influential is the VR social platforms like this wonderful one right now, VRChat, is on the tech industry, may I ask?
I think it's massive. The So I'm not going to say any names, but I did meet some staff from a certain company, and when I told them what company I work at, they're like, "Oh, you're that one company that works in VRChat." And I was like, "Yeah, like wow, you actually know. Like it's not common to feel like someone immediately knows where you're at when you're talking to them, right?"
Mhm.
And they're like, "Oh no, like we know what you're doing because we're looking to get involved in that, right?" And it's crazy to see like a Titan company recognize you considering like our size, right? But I guess our influence is so massive that people recognize that and like, okay, we need to jump on this or we're going to be late, right? That's a big thing is like, if people don't act now, they're going to be late because the wave is happening now. The wave is building like this, and everyone is just trying to get involved as soon as possible. And they know that for a fact. So that's something I think a lot of them realize is like, okay, we need to like hurry up or else like we're going to be late to the train.
Okay. So I have another question for you in those terms. What is it like trying to explain to people who don't know what virtual reality or VR chat is at all? What's it like trying to explain what you do to people who have no idea, whether they're a normie or they're in the corporate industry or someone like that?
It's terrible. Honestly, I hate it. Like, it's so awkward because explaining what vket is to people who just have okay, here, let me give you an example. So I go to OffKai, which actually, fun fact, is happening next week. It's a yearly thing that I've made my company be a part of now, who are also sponsors with us and we're sponsors with them. So I go to San Francisco to meet VTubers and agencies and other businesses at this event, and I talk about what we do, obviously. And there's a lot of VTubers who obviously know what VRChat is, right? Like VRChat is a great platform to make VTuber content on. However, there's also a large amount of VTubers who don't know what VRChat is or even touch a VR headset, right? So I'll have like a meeting with, I'm not going to put any names down, a VTuber, and I'll be like, oh yeah, so this is my company, this is what we do, this is the cool stuff you can do with us, stuff like that. And they're like, huh? And I'm like, okay, let me rewind. Like this is VR, and in VR you can do this. And with that being said, there's this platform called VRChat, and you know what I'm saying? Now I'm like
Yeah.
making this long, dragging story explaining what VR is, and then VRChat, and then getting into what I do. And then by that time, they're just like, all right, cool, bro. All right, I gotta go. It's already been 10 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I hate it. I hate explaining it, but the people who do get it are just like immediately like, oh my gosh, yes, let's get involved. Yes, let's do something. Yes, let's collab. Yes, let me call my my team. Let's get something. Let's get a meeting going like next week. Like that stuff I love, but there is that gray zone where like you can kind of like tell that they're there, and then there's like people people who are obviously there, and then there's people who are just like, man, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, stop talking to me.
I have never had experiences like VTubers that come explain, but explaining to a lot of people, like, I want to say normies, as an example, people who don't play video games who do seem interested. I feel like the History Channel meme where the dude frizzled afro hair pointing at a map with red lines going everywhere. I feel like that guy trying to explain everything here.
Aliens.
Aliens. I feel like him. Trying to explain VR at all to
I feel
anybody.
that. Yes.
Indeed. So, last few things before we wrap up, Mask. One of the questions we've started to ask people: where did you get your name from, Mask?
Oh,
Username.
Wait, let me drink water before I answer this. Hang on.
Of course.
Where did I put my water? Did I put it down there? No. Oh. Wait, did I get water? Oh, I did. All right, ASMR. You're in VRChat.
He puts his water on the floor. Yummy.
All right, ASMR. You got ready?
Man, he's a chugger.
All right. There you go. Like and subscribe.
So that's how you got
Like
your
and
name
subscribe.
from. What makes you want to choose that as your username?
So, okay. Again, long story short. So I went to university here in Japan, did my 4 years, and I took a course in teaching Japanese to foreign students. So I was a Japanese language teacher, and this is so stupid. So basically, I'd go to these classes at my university, and like, I get it. Like, you come to Japan, you want the full Japan experience, right? You want to be taught by a Japanese teacher. You know, you want to like have all this fun and like be like, oh yeah, like I was taught by a real Japanese person and real Japanese language. And the school obviously is like, well, you know, like we have to give you real life experience in teaching for this course, so we're gonna have you like once a week teach like a core sector of this class to other university students. So, mind you, I'm the only like gaijin in my university, right? That is a 4-year long student. Everyone else is like a semester long, and then they go back to wherever they're from, you know, like whatever country or whatever. So we have this classroom full of like just a bunch of gaijin. Like, oh, we're gonna see the sensei, and they're expecting probably like a beautiful, long-haired, like gorgeous Japanese woman to walk in, or like a handsome, chisel-jawed like Japanese man walking in to teach them basic, Japanese. And then here comes in my stupid ass, like with my books and everything, and I'm like, all right, well, that was, and I'll just like get my books I put in the front of like the class, and they're like, nah. And
Holy shit! It doesn't look like the pamphlet they gave me. What the hell's going on? Must be the class down the hall.
You know what's funny? I'm actually on the pamphlet of my university's like magazines and everything too. So I was like the only like foreign student there at the time. So they're like, oh, can we borrow you for like picture taking? And I was like, okay. But the funny thing is, like, sorry, I'm getting sidetracked here, but like the pictures in the magazine don't show past my knees because I didn't have any shoes. So like I was wearing sandals, and they're like, where's your shoes? And I was like, oh, I gotta wear shoes. Like I'm from Hawaii, by the way. So like shoes during summer is not a thing for me. And they're like, yeah, like you need to be wearing shoes. I was like, oh, well, I don't have my shoes unpacked. Like I could go back to my house and grab them. Like, it's fine, we'll figure something out. So like in the magazine, it's me and the other students, but like it only shows like our knees and above. Like, oh yeah, it's because I'm wearing slippers. Anyway, the name thing. So anyway, I go to the class, and surprisingly, even though I got like a negative feedback for the first like couple classes I did, they warmed up to me, and through that they're like, oh yeah, it's ChyadoSensei. So Chado is my name in Japanese, and then sensei obviously is teacher. So they were like, "Oh, ChyadoSensei." So even when I finished that semester and I was like doing other classes, even people who didn't take my class and like even my like classmates, they would call me ChyadoSensei.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
in relation to that, Chado in Japanese, if I had a pen, I'd show you. But the kanji for Chado, so cha means tea, and do, the do after Chado, that means the way of. So, for example, if you look at kendo, you know what kendo is, right?
Mhm.
Okay,
Oh,
yeah, because so kendo, ken means sword, do means the way of. So literally the way of the sword. You have judo, right? Judo is like means the way of weight, way of movement. You have was it shudo? Shudo is the way of writing, and then chado, which means the way of tea. So it's like literally for like tea ceremonies. So when you go to like a tea ceremony, they learned that method through chado, or it's also known as sado, but chado is like the old way of saying it. So people also made fun of my name because it's like, oh, you're a tea ceremony sensei. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was like the pun in my name. It was like, oh, Chado is doing Chado. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's that Japanese humor because they made fun of my name. But yeah, so that's how my name came to be, and I just kept it.
Okay.
so is what he's trying to tell us all the way around. He's got a tea shop and he's actually selling tea. Okay, gotcha. Understand. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, tea's pretty good though. I like tea. I'm not gonna lie, tea is pretty good. It's good for you. Drink tea.
So I'll ask one last question based upon what you said that I'm curious about before we finish. What is it like teaching foreigners Japanese as a person, as the teacher? What are some common questions? Is this something you'd recommend for people?
So obviously my
Oh,
scenario
here it
is
comes.
very rare. I don't know if there might be some people out there who've gone through what I've gone through. But oh man, this is loaded.
I'm good at that. I'm sorry.
So okay, no, like okay. So here's the thing, right? Like people, like if you're going to a good example, right? To just put the counter view on. So I grew up in Hawaii, and a lot of Japanese people, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I want to go to Hawaii. It looks so beautiful." Blah blah blah. And then like they'll have a chance to go study abroad in Hawaii. The issue is their imagination of going to a university in Hawaii is like, "Oh, I'm gonna have like this tall, blonde, blue-eyed, teacher teaching me English. It's gonna be so cool. They're gonna be like really awesome. They're gonna be fun. You know what I mean?" Or I'm gonna get this like amazingly like brunette or red-haired woman, with green eyes, and they're gonna teach me English, and it's gonna be super cool. We're gonna have great history. And then in comes walking like this like 68-year-old like fat, short Japanese person, right? Right? And it's like they're like, wait, I thought I was going to learn English from a native speaker, and that person is a native speaker. But Hawaii is a huge melting pot of like different cultures and races and stuff like that. So the chances of you getting a white person are incredibly low because there's not a lot of white people in Hawaii, or like anything but Asian. Honestly, anything Asian and Pacific Islander is the main like ethnicity in Hawaii. If you want to like meet like actual white people and black people, go to the mainland, right? That's where they all are. But for like Asian and Pacific Islander, like Hawaii is like, I think it's like 60% or something like that. It's insane. I think that's including the numbers of the military that's stationed there. But like, I'm pretty sure if they took out the numbers of the stationed military, it'd probably be like 80-90% Pacific Islander Asian ethnicity that lives on Hawaii. So with that being said, I can see why foreigners being taught by foreigners in Japan would be like a letdown, because it's like, man, I went through all this effort to live in Japan for X amount of time. I took all this money for university. I'm expecting the honest to God experience, right? I paid for all this. And then here comes some other foreigner, right, to come in and teach me a language that's not even their own native tongue, And it's like, I get it. You know what I mean? I get it. But at the same time, I can help relate to them. I'm like, hey, this is probably confusing because I got stuck on this too. And I feel like as a foreign teacher, teaching that language to other foreign people, I'm able to probably hit something that native speakers don't understand. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I think that made my teaching a little bit more interesting and easy to pick up when I was teaching them. They're like, oh, okay, like Chado gets it. Chado understands like the struggle that I'm feeling right now, right? But like for like a native speaker, they're like, oh, it was easy. I learned that when I was like 7, you know, like no, why are you struggling, you know? But for us who are learning for the first time, we have different hurdles than others, right?
Well, thank you very much for explaining everything to us and talking with us. I Raptor and I both enjoy learning all about you, from you with the game industry to working with
yes.
vket. So thank you for your time. It's been an amazing pleasure and an honor.
No,
Yes,
thank you.
indeed.
No, thank you for the time. I appreciate it, and I also appreciate the time sacrifice. Like it's only 10:30 a.m. my time on a Saturday, but I'm sure. Unless you're like East Coast, it must not be too bad for you.
I'm East Coast. It's 9:23. It's not too bad. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not bad. Yeah, but that is the hurdle. That is also one of the challenges of living in Japan, is finding a time that works for everyone. Because it's like, oh, like I'll get people are like, hey, how does 5 p.m. you know, like my time sound? I'm like, bro, that's like 6 a.m. my time. Can we like can we pick a different time? Like, please, like I'm human too. I got wants and needs too. All right, please don't do this to me. So again, thank you for the time sacrifice.
Oh, it's no big deal. I enjoy every moment I get to learn something new in this game, which it's VRChat's full of it, so it's not an issue at all. Where can people find you, like the audience find you, or anything you're involved with if they wish to reach out?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like you can find me on YouTube and Twitter, which is at ChyadoSensei. That's CHYADO Sensei. And yeah, you'll find me there. Or just look up Japan Guy. I'm also known as Japan Guy, given to me by other people as well. So if you look up Japan Guy, you'll find me.
Okay. Well, with that said, Raptor, do the thing. Oh, you're not even there.
Sure, the camera's down there, buddy. I'm up here, buddy.
Why'd you move up?
Camera up here, man.
Oh, there you are.
I'll show you why. No matter where you are, folks, might be where you think you are, even in VR, but sometimes you get guests come in and they fall asleep on you.
Yeah, imagine
someday-
inviting a friend that represents your history and background, and they fall asleep during an
And
interview.
I
Wouldn't that
was
be really embarrassing? Couldn't be me.
all I could say is that it was funny that she was here and it was great, but she changed her outfits about 3 times. I don't think anybody saw that, but I did. Kept changing, and all of a sudden she dozed off. But I hope she enjoys herself.
Literally
Smoke coming
the
out of
worst
her
guest
nose.
you could ever invite.
And I hope she enjoys her sleep. And I hope I don't embarrass her and she hunts me down and kills me. So on that note, folks, where you are, hopefully you enjoy yourself and have a good time. We'll talk to you later. Bye.